Bellevue, Iowa, a town so small, people still leave their doors unlocked and secrets rarely stay hidden. In the fall of 2001, a new face appeared among the antique shops and old riverfront buildings. His name was Gregory May, a tattoo artist and antiques dealer who'd recently moved from Illinois, hoping to start over. To most locals, he was polite but private, a man with a mysterious past and a quiet smile. But when the lights in his upstairs apartment stopped coming on at night, and his shop stayed closed for weeks, people began to wonder, where did Gregory go? His car was parked out front. His bills were unpaid. His coffee cup was still on the counter. But Gregory May had disappeared. What made this case so unsettling wasn't just a mystery itself. It was that for weeks, no one noticed he was gone. Bellevue didn't even realize they had a missing man. Police called it unusual, but not suspicious. There was no forced entry, no struggle, no blood, just silence. And for years, that silence stayed unbroken, until a civilian sleuth hundreds of miles away decided to reopen the file. Her name was Ellen Leach, and what she discovered would unravel one of Iowa's strangest small-town mysteries. This is not just a disappearance. It's a story about greed, obsession, and justice that came years too late. Stay with us, because what Ellen found buried in Gregory's past would shake the town of Bellevue to its core. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to Crimes and Clues and turn on the bell. Drop a comment below. What's your first impression? Could this be a case of a man who wanted to vanish, or someone who made sure he did? To understand what happened to Gregory May, you first have to understand the man himself. Gregory wasn't born in Bellevue. In fact, he'd only been there for a few months before he vanished. Born in 1950, he grew up in Illinois, a creative soul who found beauty in broken things. In his 20s, Gregory became a tattoo artist. His work was intricate, classic, the kind that told stories on skin. But what he loved even more was antiques. He believed that old objects carried energy, traces of people who'd owned them, loved them, or left them behind. He once told a friend, "Every piece has a story. You just have to listen." In early 2001, Gregory packed his life into a moving van and headed west toward Bellevue, Iowa, a riverside town of just over 2,000 people. Locals remember him as polite but private, a man who kept to himself and often spent long hours restoring old furniture or cataloging his collection. He rented a small storefront downtown and lived in the apartment above it. To most people, he was just a quiet tattoo artist with an old pickup truck and a habit of drinking coffee on the sidewalk before opening shop. But behind that peaceful routine was a man trying to rebuild after loss. Friends later said Gregory had gone through a difficult breakup, and that Bellevue represented a clean slate, a place where no one knew his past. In small towns, routine is everything. People notice when you don't wave back, when your light doesn't turn on, when your truck hasn't moved. But with Gregory, it was different. He was new, quiet, and independent, and when he stopped showing up, no one thought much of it first. Some assumed he'd gone on a buying trip. Others believed he'd moved again. Weeks passed before anyone knocked on his door. Inside, officers would find a scene that didn't make sense. A half-finished coffee, tools left mid-repair, and Gregory's dog unfed and frightened, locked inside. His truck was parked outside, keys on the counter. Everything said he was coming back, but he never did. The Bellevue Police Department opened a missing person report in late September 2001, but with no family nearby and no sign of foul play, the case drew little attention. He was an adult, one officer later said. If he wanted to leave, he could. What they didn't realize was that Gregory May had already become the victim of a crime that would take 4 years to uncover. Let's unravel how a local acquaintance's story didn't quite add up, and why Gregory's antiques would soon reveal a hidden truth. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to Crimes and Clues. We're about to step into the part of the story where facts twist and loyalties blur. Drop a comment below. What would you do if a friend or neighbor simply vanished and no one noticed for weeks? September 2001. A local landlord calls police after noticing something strange. Gregory May's shop, once open every morning by 9, hasn't opened in weeks. His truck sits in the same spot. The curtains are drawn. and the only sound inside is silence. When police entered the building, they found a scene frozen in time. Coffee cup on the counter, mail stacked by the door, tools mid-repair on the workbench. There was no blood, no broken glass, no forced entry. Everything suggested Gregory had planned to return. The Bellevue Police Department logged it as a missing person investigation. But without any immediate evidence of foul play and no family nearby to push for answers, the case remained small. Officer Thomas Briggs, one of the first responders, later said, "There was nothing to go on, just a guy who didn't come back." They interviewed nearby shop owners. Most didn't know much about Gregory. He was quiet, polite, and kept to himself. One man, however, did have something to say, a local named Jeremiah Hollenkamp. Hollenkamp told police he occasionally helped Gregory move furniture and do odd jobs. He claimed Gregory had mentioned leaving town for a few days, maybe for a buying trip. The story seemed harmless until detectives learned Gregory hadn't withdrawn any money from his accounts. Without digital clues, there wasn't much to follow. No cell phone data, no credit card usage. Investigators canvassed the nearby riverbank and fields, no trace. The case slowed. Within a few months, Gregory May's name faded from the local paper, replaced by newer headlines. The police called it open but inactive. In a small town with limited resources, some cases simply wait. For years, Gregory's file sat gathering dust. Months after Gregory vanished, neighbors reported something strange. A man had been seen living in Gregory's apartment, driving his truck, collecting his mail, even running his shop occasionally. That man was Jeremiah Hollenkamp. He told locals Gregory had left town and given him permission to take over the business. Some believed him, others didn't. But without Gregory, there was no one to confirm the story. And so, for 4 long years, the disappearance of Gregory may remain unsolved. A ghost story whispered in a town that had already moved on, until one day a woman hundreds of miles away would pick up that forgotten file and bring the truth back to light. This is where the story takes a sharp turn. Make sure you subscribe to Crimes and Clues and turn on notifications. Leave a comment below. What would you have done if your neighbor suddenly disappeared and someone else moved into their home? In 2005, 4 years after Gregory May's disappearance, a retired woman named Ellen Leach sat at her computer, scrolling through a website devoted to missing persons. To most, it was just a database of names. To Ellen, it was a calling. She spent her retirement searching for stories that had been forgotten. Cases with no family, no follow-ups, no justice. Gregory's file caught her eye for one reason. It was too empty. Just 3 sentences long. No photos, no details, no closure. Male, 51, missing from Bellevue, Iowa. Last seen September 2001. Ellen couldn't explain why she stopped scrolling. Only that something about Gregory May felt unfinished. What began as a curiosity turned into a mission. Ellen dug into property records, police bulletins, and online archives. She contacted Bellevue City Hall to ask about Gregory's building, and that's when she learned something strange. The property had changed hands a year after Gregory disappeared. The new owner? Jeremiah Hollenkamp. According to public records, Hollenkamp had filed for ownership using documents signed in Gregory May's name. But the dates didn't add up. They were signed months after Gregory was last seen. Ellen called the Bellevue Police Department. Her message was simple. You need to revisit the Gregory May case. At first, they were polite, then skeptical. But Ellen's notes were meticulous. Property numbers, signatures, timelines. Within weeks, the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation agreed to reopen the case. As detectives dug deeper, Ellen's findings held up. Hollenkamp had been using Gregory's truck, selling antiques from the shop, and even depositing money into accounts under Gregory's name. It was a slow, quiet erasure, the kind that thrives when no one is watching. Investigators secured a search warrant for the old building on Main Street. The new owner was the same man Ellen had pointed out, Jeremiah Hollenkamp. It was a humid day in August 2005 when investigators returned to Gregory May's building. This time, they brought cadaver dogs. Within minutes, The dogs alerted in the basement, beneath a section of freshly poured concrete. The team dug for hours until they found what they'd been searching for, and what Ellen Leach had feared all along: human remains. Dental records later confirmed it was Gregory May. He had been buried beneath his own home for nearly 4 years. The crime scene was grim, but methodical. No random violence. No robbery. It was deliberate. A civilian sleuth had done what authorities could not. She had found Gregory May and given him back his name. Sometimes justice doesn't come from a badge. It comes from persistence. If you're moved by Ellen Leach's dedication, subscribe to Crimes and Clues and tap the bell so you never miss a story of truth finally found. Drop a comment below. Should more citizens take an active role in solving cold cases? August 2005. The truth was finally surfacing literally. Beneath layers of concrete and time, investigators had found human remains. Dental records confirmed what the town had long forgotten. Gregory May was dead. His remains had been hidden in the very place he worked and lived, his own shop. The news spread through Bellevue like wildfire. The quiet antique store that had stood empty for years was now the center of a homicide investigation. Reporters gathered. Locals whispered. And one name resurfaced: Jeremiah Hollenkamp. When detectives reopened the case, Hollenkamp's story began to unravel piece by piece. He claimed Gregory had moved away and effed him in charge. But forensic accountants traced bank deposits and discovered that Hollenkamp had been using Gregory's accounts to pay rent, utilities, and even purchase items under his name. Every financial trail pointed back to him. Forensic handwriting experts confirmed what Ellen Leach had suspected. The signatures on those documents were forgeries. Hollenkamp was brought in for questioning. At first, he denied everything, said he'd been helping Gregory run the business. But when confronted with forensic evidence, his tone changed. After 12 hours of interrogation and confronted with DNA samples from the scene, Hollenkamp finally cracked. He admitted that an argument had escalated inside the shop one evening. He struck Gregory during the fight, and instead of calling for help, he panicked. He wrapped the body, dragged it downstairs, and buried it beneath fresh concrete in the basement. For 4 years, he lived above those same floors, pretending Gregory had simply vanished. In 2006, Jeremiah Hollenkamp was formally charged with first-degree murder. The courtroom was small, but the weight of the story was immense. For the first time, Bellevue's residents came face to face with a man who had deceived them for years. Prosecutors presented a timeline built from Ellen Leach's research, police evidence, and forensic testimony. It was airtight. After 2 weeks of proceedings, the jury returned with a unanimous verdict: guilty. Justice had come, not quickly, not cleanly, but completely. When Ellen received a call from Iowa confirming the verdict, she didn't cry. She simply whispered, "He can rest now." For her, solving the case wasn't about glory, it was about dignity, about giving Gregory May a voice again. One ordinary woman, one forgotten man. Together, they prove that truth doesn't disappear. It only waits for someone brave enough to look. Stay with us as we'll explore Gregory's legacy, Ellen's impact, and how this case changed the way small towns handle missing person investigations forever. Before we continue, make sure you subscribe to Crimes and Clues and turn on notifications. Drop a comment below. What do you think drives someone to live in the shadow of their own crime for years? In small towns like Bellevue, time moves differently. Seasons change. Shops open and close. But some names, some stories, never fade. For many in this town, Gregory May is one of them. His story isn't just about what was lost. It's about what was found: truth, justice, and proof that one person's persistence can move mountains. After the case closed, Ellen Leach became an unexpected hero in the true crime community. She wasn't a detective. She wasn't a journalist. She was a grandmother with a computer, a pen, and an unshakable belief that every missing person deserves to be found. Law enforcement later credited her work for reactivating multiple cold cases in the Midwest. But when asked about her role, she always said the same thing: it's not about solving mysteries. It's about remembering people. The discovery of Gregory May's remains and the conviction of Jeremiah Hollenkamp left a permanent mark on Bellevue's justice system. The police department introduced new procedures for handling missing person reports, no longer dismissing adult disappearances as voluntary until proven otherwise. The case also inspired a new wave of community awareness about isolated residents, especially those without close family nearby. Gregory's story became a quiet reminder that empathy isn't optional. It's a form of protection. Closure doesn't erase loss. It simply makes room for peace. For Gregory's friends, knowing the truth meant being able to say goodbye. For Ellen Leach, it meant turning off her desk lamp one last time and moving on to the next forgotten name. The story of Gregory May proves that justice doesn't belong only to detectives or judges or juries. Sometimes it belongs to ordinary people who refuse to forget. And as long as someone remembers your name, you're never truly gone. If you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit subscribe to Crimes and Clues and turn on notifications. Share this video, not for clicks, but for awareness. Drop a comment below and tell us, what part of Gregory May's story moved you the most? Because remembering the forgotten is how we keep their truth alive.